Okay, good morning and welcome to step 2. And I think I'm going to change the name of this. I think I'm going to change it to, what was that? I was going to change it to Only in the Shadows of the Moon. And that comes from a friend of mine while we were out camping. Ed, thank you. So anyway, let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. And I'll show you all the way I rolled these brushes up, I don't know, 3 days ago. And they're still wet to the touch. I'm gonna go ahead and just stick them in there to get them re-wetted. Open my palette. That was in the refrigerator. And as you can see, it is still pretty much just as I left it. The colors that I used are still have moisture on them. So perfect. I am going to take and just lightly mist this because I live in Arizona. Take the brushes I'm going to use. Looks like my sable brush liner got a little bit torqued in the bag. So what I do is I just set it back out. Even if I run some paint in it, probably the better way to do it. Run some paint in it so it's thick, and then just kind of lay it so it stays relatively flat. Okay. Now, we ended up doing 2 coats of the black, 2 coats of the misty foreground, a couple of coats on the bird, 1 on the tree. Basically going to start over real quick here and just do all this again. So we're going to start with the black, and then we're going to do the transition down to the cool blue. I am going to take the number 6 bristle brush, and I am going to dry it out and start over. Come back to my pile of black, which I noticed on editing the last video, this pile of black doesn't look black, it looks brown, and it's not. I'm sitting here looking right at it, and it looks as black can be. So anyway, let's go ahead and come back up here. This should be the final coat we have to put on this sky area, but it should be. I want to put it on not so wet and not so thin. I'm going to put this on pretty heavy so that it does actually end up covering everything we want it to. I'm going to stay away from that edge of the moon for just a minute, come back, and have to be a little more delicate with that because I want to keep the edge I've got going. It's pretty good so far. Go around the tree. And I've said this, I don't know how many times, but don't leave yourself ridges. I know I keep saying it, maybe too much. But try and pull away from areas you know you're going to be having highlights, things like that on. Get every little area you can see that needs to be covered up. Let's get back down over here. Just want it to look pitch black. And that's what seems to me where the transition starts there. And over here, that seems to be where the transition starts there. Scrub as close as I can get. Make sure I've got no more little... Underpainting would help a ton, not having to come back and do exactly this. But, like I said, I started with the blank white canvas, and we'll just finish up. The next one we do, I think I'll start with an underpainted. I'm going to come back in here now and carefully get up to that line of the moon. And get that nice and dark. Get the paint on there thick. Pull away. It's kind of hard to see sometimes exactly where you're going, but you'll see it on your canvas. I certainly wish this is definitely a fall Halloween kind of a picture. And I wish it felt like that in Arizona. Ridiculous what we're suffering through still. More heat. I think today it's supposed to be 113. The latest date ever to have a temperature, record temperature by the way, of that over 110, the latest date ever over 110. And not only is it getting that, but tomorrow's 115, which shatter all the records. And I can just see where I missed some. All right, I think that I am happy with that. That is going to be my final coat for the black. All right, now we're going to start, again, same thing we did before. What I am going to do is I'm going to take and just squish this paint out of my brush. Come back in, just get a little bit of that same color back in there. Down here, I don't want this to be too light yet. Let me test it. That's good. Transition. Again, the dry brush blending. Now, again, I'm going to take and just squeeze the paint out and come up here and lightly just blend these two together. Simple enough. Real light touch. Okay, I'm good with that. Come back down to the bluish gray. Drop down below. And I mean, you're creating just kind of this misty atmosphere. So I'll come back in here again and squeeze that out. Dabble board that and transition this into that one. Good. And this one got a little bit light, but I think we can deal with it. Scrubbing relatively hard because it starts to dry so quick. Now I'll feather. I'm not too worried about the moon. Again, I'm coming back on that, so good. Come back to the blue and the gesso and the black. Transitioning, good. Scrubbing that edge. Bit underneath there. Come over here. I need to feather that down so you're not dealing with clumps of it. Awesome. Now we really want to get this to the blue and the white. So I'll come back here to the gesso, grab just some ultramarine blue. This you don't want too thick again either. You want this to be, I don't know, like creamy butter, I guess is how I would state that. Ah, cool. That's definitely bluer. Don't worry about my bird. I can still see my bird. Feather this up into that. Nice and soft and gently. A little bit of water, a little more paint. Kind of get that to spread out a little bit. Now I'll start feathering. And the reason I'm doing these vertical strokes like I am is because of the way we're going to put these pine trees in the background. So if I keep it vertical now, any kind of brush stroke that you do see will end up looking like it's part of the misty part of the atmosphere for the trees. All right, now I got this blue and white. This is going to be way bluer and perfect. And this I can be relatively, see how I'm kind of mixing the paint up on the canvas. That's okay. This is a lot of it's going to get covered by the trees that are going in. A little more gesso, blue. Start below where you ended up and blend the two together. But the canvas is good and well covered at this point. Blue and gesso and a little bit lighter. Let's get a little more gesso, a little more blue. Just soften up the edge where the two meet. We got good coverage. Now I'll just get that feathered. Down here, kind of want that to be a little bit bluer. But I can still see a little bit of canvas showing through, so I'm gonna make sure I hit that good. Good. And I think I want to just dry brush in a little bit of mist over here. I do run the risk of, because I have a little bit of wet paint on there, rubbing through to the canvas. I got to be real super careful. But that, I think, looks good. All right, clean that out. Squeeze all the paint out. And then we are going to clean the brush out, come back over to our gesso, and we had just a touch of cad yellow and a touch of burnt umber and just a touch of purple. Perfect. This I want to be a little bit thicker. I don't want this to be so thin, because we're going to come in here on the moon. On the moon, like we just landed. And get down to tactics here and pull away from that edge. It might take a little bit of time to do this edge, but it's worth it to get the edge looking good. No ridge. So this will take just a second here to get this done correctly. So I might not chat too much. Never been accused of being a chatterbox, but I'm just kind of giving you the thoughts that are in my head as I'm doing what I'm doing, hoping it has some benefit. Keep that going. Well, I'm trying not to turn the canvas. Get rid of some of this paint here and be able to get some just on the tip of my brush. This corner, this portion of the moon is kind of critical as to that line. This whole area right there is the critical junction that the eye is going to see. So we got to be pretty accurate with the curvature. And I also want to make sure that we've got all the canvas underneath covered up. And once we get the edge done, we'll just come back in and add some to the middle. All right, let's see if I can. Now I'm going to have to turn my canvas a little bit. That little blob looks like a crater. Maybe I'll see that little bit under his foot, who knows. And the other area is up and around there. Let's go completely upside down here. Notice how I knock some of the paint off my brush first and then go to the outside edge. I don't jump right into the edge because that's when you can leave a big old blob of paint and not mean to. And my brush is getting to be more of a filbert brush than it is a flat from all the scrubbing. You can see how the brush is tapering at this point. That's from use, which is a good thing. If it was flat, it'd be just a touch easier. Okay. I think we got one more turn. Let's get that done. And then we are off to filling that in and being done with the moon part of it. Get some of that paint out, doesn't matter. I'm done, traced the outline. Now it's time to just get in here and scrub some of this together, get rid of my crater. All I'm trying to do now is just kind of blend out those hard lines I left. easy enough. I want it to be bright in here so that the contrast with the raven is cool looking. Now, if you recall the reference photo I used for the moon, it's not all one color. So the variation, leaving some of the yellowish part, make sure to leave some of that darker purple, looks cool. I still have some stuff in my brush. Some of the dark from down here. I didn't clean my brush out completely. Just adds a little bit of color variation, and I think it looks cool. Try not to paint my bird this time because I'm adding the paint pretty thick as opposed to thin. I just want to avoid having any lines. I want to add just a touch more gesso to this mix. And finish getting near the bird, next to the tree. This little area right here, I plan on just having a little branch stick out, and it's just my way of indicating to myself that I need to do something there. This over here could be nice and bright. And then right by the raven's beak and around the head. Once I get that outlined, I just come back and soften these edges a little bit. Just don't want to leave any real clear indication of an edge of any kind. And I think that looks super cool. I like painting the moon. And I'm sitting back far enough away and looking at it. I'm not getting up out of my chair like I should, but I can see one little area. I might want to put a little more. And I think I'm going to call that my moon. We're going to go hit this tree and make that super dark again. So I'm going to squeeze the paint out of the brush and then clean it. Make sure I get the paint off of the ferrule, the metal part. That seems to be where paint will stick, and then you add a new color and you start to scrubbing hard, and that old paint you had on there will squish out and get you. Coming back to my pile of black, which is again burnt umber, ultramarine blue, touch of dioxazine purple. I mixed up this pile in preparation for this because I knew I'd be going through a lot of this. Come back and redefine my edge. And now it's time to make sure you're pretty much set with where you're going with your bark on the outside. Make sure to try to cover up all of the canvas again, because the next color we're coming over here with is going to be the highlights. And so you don't want to leave any of those black spots, or the white spots in the black. Get down there. I'll leave a little bit of a area around the knot hole just to remind me that's where a highlight goes. But I will put inside of the knot hole, make it nice and dark. Already looks like a knothole. All right. And you know what? I think I'm going to clean my brush out, get all this put in the middle, just to get the paint out of my brush. I think it might be time to switch over, so I'm going to just soak that. I'm going to come and grab the number 6 sable hairbrush, load this up. I think this will be better to do my edge. I need that nice flat edge to get some character to the bark on the side of the tree. On the outside, pull in. You don't want it even. Leave some brush strokes. I'll come back and hit that little stub there here soon, but I want it to be just a slightly different color, a different tonal value. And I'm going to stay just away from that edge so I know where I want my highlight to go later. All right, now, same thing, I'm just going over. That's what you got to do with acrylics, just go over and over and over. This branch right here, I'm going to kind of follow the contour. Yeah, nice. And I'm going to have to put a branch up under his foot of some sort. And then continue with the branch. I want to make sure, so my thickness here is about that. My thickness down here where it looks even thicker is still less than what that is right there. So do the same thing to this branch. I keep getting a reflection off the ferrule of the brush and right into my retina. There we go. I like that. I do need to come, and it's easier to do it this way, so I'm going to do it this way for me. Again, I'm putting, there's not a lot of water in this. It's more like the butter consistency I was talking about. This will come past, that's behind. There's a little nub I've got sticking out. And try not to get in front of a camera. Just going to leave the indicator again of where I want highlights later. Nice. Now, I got this I want to deal with, and this I want to deal with. I'm going to come down to my pile, just scoot off to the side of where I've got that black, grab a little bit of this blue, black, make it just a little bit bluer, I think. But I want dark, 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 but blue. Is that dark enough? No, it's not dark enough. Make it darker. Just needs to be one shade, not two. Let's see how that looks. That's better. Let's have a branch come off that way. Cool. And this right here, I'm going to have a nub. I know it might be hard to see that the variation in that color, but it's there and it makes a difference. I'm going to kind of taper this away, so I'll put a little bit darker down here and feather that until it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. That gives that more 3D perspective. There we go. All right, I think I will clean this out. And do I want to do another? Let's just go ahead and do another coat on the bird real quick. I need to turn on my reference photo of my raven. And of course I've got the moon up. So let's have the raven. Where you at? Hello? Where's my raven? There it is. All right. I'm just going to take this black, and I can see on the raven where the dark black is. That needs more attention. Part of jumping around with acrylic paints is because of the way it does dry. So I do that a lot. I'll jump from one thing to the next. I'm going to bring some feathers out like that. Jump here, jump there. And that's just what you end up learning to do in dealing with acrylics is, okay, get off of that for a while, let it cure, so you can come back and do other things later. And right now I'm just kind of picking out where I see dark spots, the darkest spots on the reference photo I've got. For instance, like right here, there's some real dark shadow, cast shadows from some of the flight feathers. Get that put in. There are some, I like that one feather on his back coming out like that. Actually, there's two of those. I see another area, but I'm going to have, we're going to have some highlights and stuff still going on the branch, so I don't want to completely get that going yet. Underscore, let's see, coming right down here, there seems to be a highlight or a shadow. Underneath here is cast shadows from feathers. Underneath part is definitely dark. I'm going to bring those tail feathers down a little bit more than what my drawing was, just to make the bird look cooler, I guess. Now I want to make this as that dark in, this dark. All right, now we're on to a challenging area. This area in here, I want some distant trees and I want trees to get closer. So we need to drop those back in the background in tonal value. And I see how long, okay. We're going to come down to our pile that we used to mix this up. That blue black, I'm going to come down here and get something. And we'll just have to go up and check it. And again, I'm still using the number 6 sable. I want to get that nice and flat. Well, let's check and see. See, that's not dark enough. So I'm going to darken it up. Mash your brush, get that nice flat edge. Oh, that's good. And again, this is where it's going to take some time on your part. I'll get things started. That might be too dark, actually. I think it is. I think I'm going to dab that off because when acrylic dries, it just gets darker. So I think I did that too dark to begin with. And I don't mind showing mistakes. When I make mistakes, that's when I learn, and maybe you can learn too. Let's go back and see if we can cover over those. Now, because it's almost the same color, it might just dry a little bit darker. And these are the real distant ones, but here is where you're going to see. So just get them put in there, just something. Yeah, cool color. I just want it on the end of my brush. I don't need my whole brush loaded. Start down here in this and knock some of the paint off. And don't make it look like you're painting a barber's comb here. You want to make sure you've got some variation. Like that. I got my little clippy thing here. There we go. Just come back and clean that up a little bit. And I'm showing you, I'm showing you every paintbrush stroke I use making these. I know they probably look a little bit long-winded, but I figure, if you want to skip to something, go ahead, skip to it. I'm going to come back to that same mixture, add a little bit more dark. Try and get as much out of my brush and then load the tip of it up. Let's see, that's good. Yeah, that's where we were before. And these are just trees that are a little bit closer. Since I decided I'm not going to put another tree over here, I'll get some interesting trees over here just to kind of stop the eye from going too far. See how dark it started to dry as I'm painting. Do some more of those. This is kind of the tedious part of painting, but again, I figured I'd share everything with you. You want to skip past it? Skip past it. That's fine with me. Now, see, I didn't have my paint mixed up well there. What happened? I'm going to clean my brush out and start over. There we go. All right, go back over this guy. Yeah, I did too much there and got some burnt umber stuck in my brush. Thin that out a little bit. Notice I'm just making suggestive brush strokes. I am not trying to paint trees. I am painting suggestions. And if I make a mistake, I turn it into a tree. A little more blue in that. Nope, I got a little too dark on that. I see where I accidentally grabbed that burnt umber from. Let's do. There we go. You'll see why I'm doing this here in a second. Keep that going. I added more blue, more gesso, but I wanted it really blue. Not too dark yet, but darker obviously than this. I think I want, with this color, come in here to this guy. And this blob of paint. And put some. Well, I think I think I will come into this color, and let's get one like stupid tall one right here. There we go. Got another one there. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of detail to that. All right. I'm going to come back with just a little bit darker shade. Can't even see this one, but when it dries, it'll probably be just a little bit darker. And I'm happy with that. All right. Now we're going to get to the interesting part of this. I'm going to clean my brush out. Let me check the time. Here's the next step. I'm going to give you the next step, but I believe we're going to have to call it. I'm getting out of time here. So I'm going to take and scrape off my my moon color for them. I don't want to lose the color. I like the color, so I'll just put it in a different area. Clean off your tools. But I'm going to come over here and take some Hooker's green, take some purple, about even, and that's super, super dark. But what we're going to do is take this color, and I need this to be on the little more moisture side. I'm going to come over here to the color I was just using to paint these lighter bluish ones, and I'm going to mix in that combination of Hooker's green and dioxazine purple, and this is where we're going to start to add some larger trees. Yeah. So what I would do is suggest that you work on this part of it. Start with this color. This is the dioxazine purple mixed with Hooker's green. And these are your intermediate trees. They're not going to be the focal foreground ones yet, but I mixed that with this bluish color we were using underneath. I just am getting some closer trees done, so what my recommendation is at this point is to take this color, come in here, scatter these. There don't have to be a lot of them, but you definitely want some of them to have some of that intermediate color range. The trees that we're going to make closer are going to be even darker. but you've got to get these intermediate trees in here, or the transition is just too abrupt. So, with that, I think that we'll call this one, and you go ahead and do as many, don't do a lot, do as many of those intermediate trees as you can. And when we'll pick up tomorrow or next week is we will come in and start adding those close foreground trees. We'll probably add some dead trees in there as well. And then we will get on working on the bark, and we'll get working on the raven. I'm thinking there's probably going to be 2 more. I think there has to be 2 more, because we're going to put in highlights, but you're going to want to come back in and go over those highlights again so that they look super vibrant and bright. And then only in the shadow of the moon can you see a picture like this, and that's going to be the name of it. And I thank you all for joining me for this, and please subscribe and like the video. Thank you.